In this morning's Business Insight, Sunrise Advertising, a full-service marketing agency, is rebranding itself as Brandiance. Brandiance focuses on 3 business categories: financial, insurance, travel, tourism, and restaurants. The company says its creativity is powered by data intel, 2 things that we don't often think of in tandem. Brian McHale, the CEO and owner of Brandiance, joins Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer in the studio to talk about the importance of brand and the intersection of creativity and data. Rob, Brian.
Thanks very much, Brian. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
So why was now the right time to go through kind of a brand reset?
Sure. Well, like any good business, you always want to be evolving. And really, this new brand represents who we've become over the last 2 years, and we felt like it was just time to get out and tell people what we've been doing over the last 2 years and who we've become.
Does it make does the sort of the new name, you're hoping it'll make your elevator pitch maybe easier, or is it not that kind of?
You know, I guess you always hope for that, but really the main impetus behind it was we wanted a name that said what we did, and Brandiance really comes from the intersection of 4 different words: brand, audience, science, and experience. And we felt like those are also our core practice areas, so the name really summarized well for us anyway what we do on a daily basis.
We were talking right before we sat down about data and about how it's changed a lot in our world.
Right.
It's obviously changed your world too. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Now, data is one piece of what we do under the science piece, but data has really changed the marketing industry in a big way just because of the availability of customer data. Customers are very willing to give data to brands in exchange for value. And what we're doing now is we're using that customer data in order to develop insights that will hopefully lead to better marketing, more targeted marketing, not only for the brand, but also for the end consumer, the customer, so that they're getting the messaging and the communication and the engagement that they really want.
So you went out on your own 15 years ago?
Sunrise was done, it opened in 2003.
So 15 years ago. What are the biggest changes you've seen in your industry? Just a couple. I know there's a million, literally a million, but what are a couple that, if you think back to 03 and now, what would be some big differences?
I think one of the biggest things is, we thought this had already happened in 03, was fragmentation.
Right.
There are just so many choices and so many opportunities to use for marketing that brands can tap into, and it just continues to expand and expand. You know, the digital area, the mobile area, it just continues to get bigger and better. The hard thing for brands, though, is you can get out there and use so many different options to market with that sometimes you can lose your brand or lose your brand messaging, and we try to help keep companies centered and on message and on mark, even though they might be using 10, 15 different vehicles to get their word out.
Yeah, I've got to believe that the services of companies like yours have really never been more important, because I think there's just so much out there. There's so much information. There's so much data that you could really drown. What kind of people, when you're hiring, what kind of people are you looking for, maybe differently than you would have back then?
Well, it's funny. We like to say, I don't know if it's different, but we like to say that we're kind of a mix of techie and analog, strategists and creatives, because we really need all things. You know, I love data, I love numbers on my side of the business, but I also love to be surrounded by creative people because they just think completely differently than I do.
That's right.
And we really need a mix today, and so it really depends on the role that we're trying to fill. We might be looking for a data analyst or a data scientist type person, or we might be looking for a copywriter. Those two obviously need to understand what each brings to the party, the strengths and weaknesses that they bring, so that they can collaborate together in a good way.
Sure. Last question for you. Looking forward, let's look out maybe 2-3 years. What, if we were sitting here, what maybe will we be talking about as far as what you guys are working on, whether it's maybe a new niche or different kind of clients? Where are you hoping to be?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a different type of client, but my pleasure.
All right, back to you.